Now, most people have never heard of Manhattan, Colorado. Not the one with skyscrapers, okay? The other one. It's the one that's hidden in the mountains just north of the Poudre River. A place that once had a newspaper, a hotel, a saloon, hundreds of mining claims, and, a few hundred men absolutely convinced that they were standing on top of the next great Colorado gold strike. Now, today, there's almost nothing left, okay? You have a few scattered ruins, you have the cemetery, old foundations hidden in the trees, and just quiet forest where an actual town once stood. But the strange part about Manhattan is this: the gold that started it all. It's still there. Now, to understand Manhattan, you have to jump forward about 20 years after the original Colorado Gold Rush. So by the late 1870s and early 1880s, the big discoveries had already happened, right? You had Central City, Black Hawk, Leadville, Georgetown, right? Most of the famous mining camps, okay, they'd already exploded into existence. So by the time that Manhattan appeared, the easy story of the gold rush, it had already been written. But prospectors, right, we never stop looking, because sometimes the next strike is just hiding in the places that everyone else overlooked. So in 1886, right, there were 3 prospectors, and they were working the country just north of the Cache la Poudre River, and they made a discovery: gold-bearing rock in the hills between 7 Mile Creek and Elkhorn Creek. Okay, this wasn't just flakes in the creek. No, this was gold in the rock itself. And when you have that kind of discovery, it just spreads like wildfire into the mining country. And within a year, right there, a mining camp had appeared. And they decided they were going to call it Manhattan. Probably because, someone thought that it just sounded big, right? Manhattan, important. Maybe even just a little inevitable. It's the kind of name that a town gives itself when it believes it's about to become famous. And for a moment, Manhattan looked like it might actually happen. So by 1887, the town had a post office, right? There was a hotel. They had their general store. They had a livery stable. They had a saloon, right? And something every ambitious mining camp believed it needed, right? A newspaper. Well, it was called the Manhattan Prospector. Now, I want you to think about that for just a moment, right? A mining camp, so new that the streets were probably still mud, already printing a newspaper about its own future. Hundreds of claims, right? They were all staked in the surrounding hills. There was more than 300 mining claims, by some accounts. And you had prospectors crawling all over the ridges with picks and shovels. Shafts going down into the rock. Black powder blasts just echoing through the timber, right? You had men hauling ore down extremely rough wagon roads towards stamp bills, trying to get it out of there. Because, when a district looks promising, nobody wants to be the last man to stake ground. Everyone thinks that the next shaft might punch into the real vein. It's the one that makes everyone rich. But Manhattan had a little bit of a problem, and it was a quiet one. It was the the kind of problem that has killed a lot of mining towns over time. So the ore was real, okay, but it was far from spectacular. Some mines, right, they showed some promising gold, okay, and, there were veins running through the rock. There still are there. And assays, even from parts of the district, the assays showed gold grades that could absolutely make a miner excited. But it still wasn't the kind of rich, easy ore that builds a massive boom town just right overnight. But still, the camp kept trying, right? So you had mines with names like, you had the Gold Coin Mine, you had the Free Gold Mine, and even the Sodom Mine, right? These mines, they were all driven into the hills. Men just kept digging. They kept blasting, and they kept, believing that the next tunnel would finally break into the mother lode. Because, mining towns, you guys, they run on hope, right? And sometimes they run on hope more than they just run on the gold ore itself. So, here's where the story kind of gets strange for me personally, because I have literally walked through what's left of Manhattan, okay? I've metal detected the ghost town, okay? And, I've prospected the creeks and hills around it. I'm very familiar with the area. And standing there today, it's really hard to imagine what the place must have looked like. But every now and then, the ground, it reminds you. A little piece of metal, right? A fragment of the past, a signal in my headphones from something that's buried under the dirt. And suddenly, that quiet forest, it feels a little less empty. Because when you metal detect a ghost town, right, you're not just looking for objects, okay? You're looking for the shadows of people, right? So every nail, every little piece of iron, every lost button or tool, okay? Guys, that was dropped by someone who lived there. Someone who believed that Manhattan was going to actually be their future. And if you prospect the ground around there, right, the story gets even stranger because, the gold there, it never disappeared, okay? Trust me, you can go there right now and you can find it, right? Tiny flakes, there's still fine gold in the creeks. It's exactly the kind of gold that drove those first miners into the hills almost 140 years ago, which, to me, it tells you something important, right? Like the geology there, it was never fake. The gold is real. The district just never became rich enough, fast enough to survive the brutal economics of frontier mining. So by the late 1890s, Manhattan, it just began to fade from existence. 1900, the post office closed, right? And then the school shut down just a few years later. I think it was like 1904. But buildings, right? They were moved or they were just abandoned. And then the forest and the mountains just started reclaiming the town. The newspaper, it stopped printing. And when that happens, the towns start going that way. The miners, they drift away. And so Manhattan slipped quietly into ghost town status. Now, today, most people driving through northern Larimer County, they don't even realize that it existed. But if you walk the ground long enough, okay, you really start seeing it again. The outlines of the foundations, they're there. The old mine dumps just hidden up in the trees, collapsed shafts, pieces of a town that just once believed it was about to become, the next great Colorado mining camp. And that brings us back to the gold. Because there's a reason you can still find color there today, right? The mountains above the Poudre, they're still doing what they've always done. Just breaking rock, right? Cracking veins, letting tiny pieces of gold escape and just, wash downhill. Guys, that system never stopped working, okay? And that means that Manhattan, okay, it never completely ran out of gold. It just ran out of time. And maybe that's the strangest thing about mining history. The places that failed often, they still got gold in the ground. And sometimes the dream, it just arrived too early before the technology was there to get that gold, or before the right person looked in the right spot. Well, if you enjoy stories like this, okay, real places, forgotten mining districts, and, the strange history that gets hidden up in these mountains, well, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. That way, more people who love mining history can, find my stories. Oh, yes, turn on those notifications too. That way you don't, miss the next episode that I drop. And, I love hearing from you guys. I really do. So if you've explored Manhattan, if you've been there as well, metal detected old ghost towns, right? Or prospected the country north of the Poudre, drop your experiences right down below in the comments, because some of the best mining stories, okay, they don't come from books. No, they come from the people who are still out there walking the ground. And until the next one, keep your eyes on the mountains, because the gold rush, it never really ended.